You mentioned that the Bill of Rights was passed after the Constitution. And so that leads me to ask, are there rights protected in the body of the Constitution? And if so, why were they put there?
There are some rights that are protected in the body of the Constitution. At the very least, they're protected by implication. So for example, you can't suspend habeas corpus in certain circumstances. There can't be any ex post facto laws. Can't be any bills of attainder. There are some that are embedded in the Constitution that are just a reminder, arguably going back to the English Bill of Rights, going back to Magna Carta, going back to lots of old English rights that do find their way into the body of the Constitution, but not many. Those really were specific limitations on the federal government that folks thought, well, it makes sense for us to just stick this into the Constitution straight away rather than even considering putting them into a Bill of Rights. Some rights are protected directly, and some are protected indirectly in the body of the Constitution. For example, the Constitution protects the right to jury trial in Article 3 and the protection against religious tests to hold office in Article 6. In addition, Article 1 provides Congress the power to protect authors and inventors' intellectual property rights.
The Bill of Rights has, of course, been around now for more than 200 years. How would you assess the change in attitude towards the Bill of Rights since it was enacted in 1791?
The importance of the Bill of Rights has changed quite a bit since 1791. There were fights over the Bill of Rights up until the time they were passed, but they've become more of a part of who we are and what we do. So here's the basic notion behind Bills of Rights and how they've changed. When the Bill of Rights came into being, the assumption was that they would be rights that people would hold as against the federal government. And indeed, up until 1833, when there was a little bit of a question, in 1833 in Barron versus Baltimore, the Supreme Court's position was that the Bill of Rights only applied to the federal government. Well, since then, there's been a bit of a sea change. In the wake of the 14th Amendment, folks have taken the position that the Bill of Rights, or at least specific parts of the Bill of Rights, don't merely apply against the federal government, but that they apply against all government. So consequently, the Bill of Rights, or at least many of the particular provisions in the Bill of Rights, not only apply against the federal government, but they apply against state governments as well. So now we tend to view the Bill of Rights as more of a Bill of Rights. It's more of a notion of this is what American citizens ought to expect that they ought to be able to do regardless of who is on the other side. It's a limitation on state government, local government, federal government. It's just who we are and what we do. It's not just a limitation on the federal government. Unfortunately, even though the Bill of Rights is fundamental to who we are as a people and what our country is, few people know much about the Bill of Rights. If the polls are accurate, few people understand the reasons for the Bill of Rights, and few can identify many substantive guarantees the Bill of Rights provides.